The October 23rd meeting for the Fargo Board of Education. Could I please have a motion for approval of the agenda? We do have an HR addendum as well. Jim?
I'd like to move approval of the agenda with the addition of item 5C, the HR addendum.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Recognition of audience. We do have an individual that has signed up to address us this evening, Larissa Patterson. And I just need to read this before you begin, but you could make your way to the podium if you'd like. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and address for the record. We would also ask that speakers refrain from using this forum to criticize or complain about a specific employee by name. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond or debate issues in this forum. Should you desire a written response to a specific question, you may request it. This evening, you will be allotted a maximum of 4 minutes. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. I've never done this before, so bear with me. I'm here because I want to talk about policy, and I want some clarification on what it actually is as far as the way our children are disciplined at school over altercations. Small, large, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's at fault or who's not at fault. When a child, and I hate to bring bullying into it because it's not always the case, but if you're going to revert back to that, then if the victim is being punished the same as the aggressors, then it becomes a problem for our kids. And we recently dealt with this in our home and in our schools, and I would like some clarification on what we as parents can do, and if changes need to be made, then how do we start doing that? Because, I mean, if my son doesn't feel safe to go to school, then it's a problem. And if he's being punished and receiving criminal charges for being a victim of an offense at school, then that's also a problem. And I think it needs to be addressed at whatever level it needs to be addressed on. I don't know if it's you, if it's the school itself, but it needs to be addressed. So what can we do to make this better? What can we do to fix this as it stands to make our kids feel safer at school and not be the victims? Oh, I don't really know what else to say. I know there has to be a policy in place. I have not received answers as to actually what that policy is. So if one of you could direct me to where I could find the policy so that I can read it myself, I'd be more than happy to. I'm open to any suggestions and all suggestions, but I wanted to start with you because I feel like you're the ones that make the rules here. So,
Ma'am, it sounds like thank you very much for providing us with this information and for participating at our meeting this evening. And it sounds like administration would be the best spot, the best group of individuals to work with you to provide you with the answers that you are requesting. Does that sound good to you?
sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, and they have your contact information.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Moving on to staff reports. Do we have a report from the FEA?
Hello, yes, a little bit. First of all, I've got Washington in the house. Give them a wave. And their little brag statement is, this is only one sentence, but hold on. They raised $20,000. Is that right? Over $20,000 at a walkathon with the kids earlier this month. So, just one sentence there.
Yeah.
And I see we've got some Bennett in the house. Do you have something you want to mention? Here, come over here so they can hear you.
We have been working on a bunch of things. We have implemented both small group reading and math at all grade levels. All of our teachers now, K-5, are AVM are Course 1 trained, with about half being Course 2 trained, so we're implementing that into our small group math. Other than that, we are also doing SEL training as a staff for professional development and implementing that into our morning meeting. So those are some of the things we've been working on.
I think that deserves a round of applause as well.
And I also brought my treasurer with me, and she'll report for herself. This is Lynette Christman. She's at Ben Franklin.
Sure. So as a counselor at Ben Franklin, October is Stomp Out Bullying. So I just wanted to make a shout out to all middle schools right now have been going into the classrooms of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders 3 times, 2 of them by us counselors and the 3rd by the SRO, to discuss the importance. And one of the big discussions is understanding the definition of bullying. Students can be mean and inappropriate, but also to understand the level of bullying and what that definition is. Another huge part of it is using Second Step, which is an SEL curriculum that we've been using, and that does a lot of discussion about the power of bystanders and the power of a trusted adult knowing that bullying is going on. Because sometimes, oftentimes, we don't know until after the fact. So trying to empower students to let us know before it gets out of hand. So that's middle school.
Thank you very much. Good work. We have a couple of presentations. David Berkman, I know your name's on the agenda, but you might have some others here helping you out. First, the Woodrow Wilson High School report.
Good evening, school board and superintendents. Good to be before you tonight. Very thankful to be part of some really dynamic teams within Fargo Public Schools. Thinking about the admin team, the principals team, thinking about our Agassiz team, Woodrow team, EL team. And tonight have the privilege of working with 2 teams and presenting a couple of wonderful programs within the district. First program, Woodrow Wilson High School, where I am principal. I will introduce the team that will be sharing our senior survey data. I believe it was last month you'd have had Mr. Dolan, Mr. Cody, and Dr. Birch playing a little cahoodle with you all, I believe. Tonight, a Woodrow version of a senior survey presentation. Math teacher Sherry Ernst will be presenting. How many years at Woodrow? 26 years at Woodrow. And then David Woods, English teacher at Woodrow for eight years, and then assistant principal Jim Keel. So we will be presenting an overview of Woodrow as well as our senior survey data. I have the first slide, which is a picture of Woodrow, and if you could look at the fine print on the Agassiz building, we have about 13 programs there that we do a lot of interactive projects together that you will see in the Woodrow presentation. Students, of course, working towards that high school diploma in Woodrow Wilson. And if we have a student that seeks an alternative route of GED, we also have that program within the building, and Jennifer Free and team do a solid job with GED as well. So I'm going to turn it over to my team here presenting on Woodrow. And first up, I believe, is Sherry.
Good evening. This is so far out of my comfort zone, I can't even tell you. I don't ever speak in front of people, and I can't believe I volunteered for this at all. But I am Sherry Ernst, and I do teach at Woodrow. I'd like to start off by saying this is actually my 30th year of teaching. I started at 2 years at Cardinal Mensch Seminary and loved it, and they closed. Then I went to North High, and I was an aide in the ILC room, met Missy, and I taught part-time, and I wanted a full-time job, and there happened to be an opening at Woodrow. So I went there thinking maybe it would be a stepping stone. Well, since it's been 26 years, that was a pretty big stone, I guess. It is a good fit for me. It has been my greatest pleasure and my greatest joy. So when Mr. Berkman asked if somebody wanted to present, I, of course, did not make eye contact, but I want the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the school that is more than just my career. So, the things I love the absolute best about Woodrow Wilson is it is a school of choice. No one's assigned it, but at the age of 16, you can choose to attend Woodrow Wilson. They want to be there. They're ready to work. They're ready to get things done. We also pride ourselves at being the relationship school. Every student is paired with an advisor, and of course we have our class and our students that way. I always wanted those kind of relationships like a coach would have with their teammates, but I am not athletic, so being a coach was never in the ballpark at all. So this has been an awesome fit for me. I am able to have that type of relationship with a bunch of wonderful people. As part of our senior survey data, here we had 50 graduates last year. 48 of them took the survey. This lets you know about where they're from. Some are from Davies, from North, or from South, and a lot of them didn't spend very much time at those 3 schools. We have a lot of transfers. Maybe they come into town in the middle of the year or not at semester time, and it's just a little easier to start at Woodrow. So that's where our kids come from. We also are a very diverse group of students within a very diverse building. Mr. Berkman has already commented about the various programs, several of which it's a very easy building to get lost in, but there's always someone there that's willing to help. But we have a very diverse group of people and have for numbers of years. Some of the more things that I love about Woodrow is that it's a fresh start. Always is a fresh start. Students can start anytime at any semester. You can take second semester the very first day of school or the second week. You can start any Monday, and if you make a mistake, you can take a break and return later. If you've dug a hole and things aren't going well, let's take a break, try something new, and come back. Let's finish it later. You can fix any of your mistakes and have do-overs. I'd love to have do-overs in my life. I'm hoping tomorrow morning, I'm not wishing for a do-over of tonight, but if my kids could possibly have a do-over, we dug a pretty big hole here. Let's try to fix it. And that's a lot of the conversations we had. What got you to this point so we don't get there again? It's not a revolving door. It certainly isn't that. We wouldn't want that. But it's allowing them to fix their mistakes, to recognize them. Attendance is an issue. Whatever it might be, let's fix it and let's start something new and try it again later. And another thing that I absolutely love is coming back in the fall and see who matured. Oh my gosh, they've surprised me every year. Some kids that you thought, oh, you got a long way to go, buddy. But by the next fall when they start, it's, wow, he's ready to go and we're going to get things done this year. And it's wonderful to be a part of that. How our day works. We offer 2 time slots, an AM class and a PM class, and the majority of our students follow this time slot. Take 1 class in the morning, 1 class in the afternoon. For example, you might have algebra in the morning, then lunch, and then English in the afternoon. But we do also have a lot of skinnies. We have student B here could take art, maybe guitar, and then history, then lunch, and then for the afternoon have biology. Some of our skinny classes that I'm so grateful we have the opportunity to offer are art, guitar, facts, business classes, and PE. Any of those can be taken in little skinnies throughout the day. Any one of our students, we have our year broken up into 6 semesters. Our days we hope our students finish a class in 29 days. But the beauty is they could finish earlier. Might be day 24, might be day 25. Or if math isn't your thing, maybe it's day 32. And you can take a little extra time if need be, or finish early and start something else. So you have the opportunity to get a lot more done than just the 6 classes a year. But of course, that's our goal for every student, to get at least that. Our graduation facts. Woodrow Wilson's graduation class is larger than many traditional high schools in North Dakota. We're actually kind of big. Might be small in our district, but we're kind of big. We had 50 graduates last year. We've had as many as 72 in 2014. We get some kids through. And when our students are done, they are choice ready. College, career, and life. Some go to work, some go to the military, trade school, 2-year school, or a 4-year college. According to our senior survey, here are some of their choices. This is going to be my personal opinion, but why there's 60% in a 2-year school, I think our kids like the smaller feel. I think they do better with the smaller setting. I also think they're encouraged, at least if I'm their advisor, that sometimes that's a cheaper option to just start there and get going and get your feet wet a little bit. Also, there's more 2-year schools or vocational schools are hands-on, and a lot of our students do a little bit better with that kind of setting. And they use it as a stepping stone. do 2 years and then move into a 4-year school. So although last year we only had 16% for a 4-year school, I think many of those 2-year college kids would think that that would be happening in the future, just not next fall. We also have students, of course, who are employed and plan to enter the workforce or go to military and things like that. They have every opportunity to do whatever they want with our education. Some of our graduation facts. When our graduation is held at our building the Friday night before North, South, and Davies. Ours will be held this year on May 31st. I hope you can attend because it is awesome to see. Some more pictures of some of our little cherubs. Here they are. When we have our ceremony, we have an open mic. They do a lot better than I. You should attend. They do really quite well. They're very grateful, and they are so excited to take the next step. Our survey, because that is supposed to be what my presentation is on. Here are some of the survey results. How students feel about their education at Woodrow. My teachers have high expectations for me, almost 96%. My teachers encourage me to set individual goals, 98. My teachers expect me to do my best at 100%. I would like to say that many of our seniors may have only taken 2 classes with us. Some have been with us for 3, 4 years, but some have been with us for maybe 2 months, and every single one of them still felt that we expected them to do their best. I'm pretty proud of that one. I feel my school offers a high quality total education program, 98. And they feel ready for the real world. I understand we combined an awful lot of things, the read, math, all in one, because they all were about 80%, so we just grouped them together. This is our informal walk. Any student can graduate at any point in time. I believe we've had 5 graduates already this year. So when they finish their class, we have a walk in the hallway. We play a little music on the PA system, similar to a birth in a hospital, I guess. But we play a little celebratory music, and the entire student body comes out in the hall. And the student starts at one end, and we give one, and today is a great day. Joe is graduating, and this is what Joe plans to do. And they walk down the hall to our applause, and they sign a scroll at the end of the hall. Love this, because there are many times students that are no longer in my class are graduating, and I don't want to wait till May to congratulate them. And they sometimes invite their family. There's balloons sometimes at the end of the hall, and they may say they don't want to walk, but they do. It also inspires some of them in the hallway. You can hear the murmurings. That's going to be me. I'm going to finish by April. I'm going to do this. And so it's a win-win for everyone involved. Some more of our senior survey, how they actually feel about the people here that we have at Woodrow Wilson. The students that picked agree or strongly agree are other students at this school treat me with respect, 93%. Students at my school feel safe each day at school, 93%. I feel my teachers and all staff treat me with respect, every single one of us. I feel students respect each other. That's now at 84%, last year was 70%. My teachers are understanding when students have personal problems, 98%. We work hard on this. This is something that gives us the indication that we can call ourselves the relationship school. Oh, I'm done. I want to say, I thought about this an awful long time as to why are you volunteering to speak in front of these people? This is so not like you. And after many days I drive 30 minutes before I get to work. And after many days of wondering, what are you doing this for? I realized it's because I wanted the opportunity to thank you. For 26 years, I have worked with the cream of Fargo Public Schools, and I am very proud of that. And I thank you for the opportunity because they have not only made me a better teacher, but a better person. And as I get towards the end of my career, I wanted that opportunity to tell you thank you.
I'm not going to try and top that. I have the difficult task of trying to explain how we arrived at those numbers. What do we do that's unique? And it's my introduction lead into Mr. Woods. The school accreditation process, the state of North Dakota uses advanced ed for accreditation. We are subject to the same accreditation policies as other schools and districts of the state. And so we have to follow those pieces of the puzzle. I'm sure most of you are familiar with ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. The pieces of the puzzle in North Dakota that include choice ready, some test scores, those things that feed into what will ultimately be our report card as a school. What is your school doing? How does it look? We believe very strongly that choice ready is a very critical component, not just for our students, but I think it's an area that our students can really focus in on, lean in on, and excel. And so with that, I'm going to toss it over to Mr. Woods.
Let me just say that I am way different than Sherry. She teaches math, I teach English. She's very reserved and articulate, and I am not. I'm very obnoxious, and I say what's on my mind. That's how I am. So our program, one of our programs is the Mentor-Mentee Advisory for Credit. Every student participates in this, and this is basically something that we champion because we feel that as a relationship school, every student deserves to have a teacher or a grown-up champion something for them. So what we do is we come up with a bunch of activities for them to do, and they can earn advisory credit. Once they do that, I mean, they meet with us often, they participate in activities, they get some credit for that, advisory points, and 80 of those can lead to half a credit. 160 of those can lead to a full credit. There's a weekly checkpoint meeting. They can meet either Tuesday or Wednesday, or whenever we see a student in the hallway, we can, pull them to the side and have that conversation with them on a multitude of things. And like I said before, 80 units equals a half credit, 160 units equals a full credit. So, like Mr. Keel said, we are tasked with the responsibility of coming up with SIP goals. But as the relationship school, we would like to come up with goals that are realistic, that are authentic, and that show progress towards the relationship with students. One of those is students will earn 40 or more half credits of mentorship. So all Woodrow Wilson students are involved in this program, and each mentor will achieve at least one student earning a mentorship credit. So those are multiple meetings, those are multiple interactions. A student will not walk the halls of Woodrow and not come in contact with one teacher or staff member. Most of the time, it is way more than that, and you can see the progression. Volunteering is extremely important at Woodrow. Right there, you see the students raking leaves for the neighbors. We like to also have that relationship with the community, so we do send out flyers, and if neighbors of Woodrow would like us to come and rake, we will do that for them. We also do art. Number two, increase the number of Woodrow Wilson students graduating with 24 hours of community service credits. So what you saw there were pictures of them raking. So we will provide a minimum of 2 opportunities for them to do some kind of community service work. That's our responsibility to our students. And then form a building service committee with Agassiz stakeholders. So like Mr. Berkman said, there are a multitude of programs under one building. So it's important for us to work with those other programs so we can have a better experience for all of our students. So what I need you to understand is a student that comes to Woodrow, if you think of it as an onion, they come with this shell, this hard shell. No one likes eating that shell. But, once you start peeling that shell, you start to uncover things. Are there tears involved? Yes, there are tears involved, just like onions. But a student, a student will come and they will open up to you. And we all know that once a student trusts an adult, a student's going to do better in school. They're going to flourish. That's how it is. So what we want to do is we want to give them the full experience. And that's what Woodrow is about. It's about creating a relationship and giving the students a full experience. And that part of that experience is going out into the community, which is they're going to do anyway, and experiencing volunteering, giving, caring, empathy, those types of things, not just, academic service. But we do have, one of our things we have are the accolades program, and that's respect, readiness, and responsibility. We fully push for the 3 R's, because like I said, they come in with a hard shell. After a while, when they're more trusting of the adults, then we can have this mutual respect. Everything at Woodrow is mutual. That's what we push for. There's an accolades breakfast. I skipped ahead a little. So a student comes also maybe with a low GPA from one of the traditional schools or a school outside Fargo. We are not worried about that as a staff. We're worried about you came to us, you're ready, let's get to work. So a student can have a, like a 2.0 when they get there, but as they start working with Woodrow, they become a little more interested in their academics. So the GPA at Woodrow is what is important. So that's one of the things that qualifies them for accolades. There is a certificate. If you think of it as Honor Society, it's kind of similar to that. They must complete 2 courses per 6 semester. They must have quality attendance. So we give punctuality and reliability points once a student finishes a course. That is up to 4 points. Commendable scholarship, so they need a 2.8 plus, 2.8 or more for the GPA. Again, we are not counting where they were. We are worried about where they are at. And they must have respectful character. This gives them a sense of accomplishment. We push that, hey, if you want to put this on a resume, go right on ahead. And if we get a call back, we're going to give you, we're going to give you a good recommendation. Has that happened? Yes, it's happened to me personally. And that is the certificate that they receive. Number 3, increase the number of accolades achieving students from 15 to 20. So we're really trying to push that, and we're really trying to make this a big deal for students. We want them to strive for the best. And again, all along the way, you're going to fall, but you can recover at any time. And so that ongoing relationship is what's important. Number 4, increase the number of students completing Algebra 2 with a C or higher at Woodrow Wilson from 6 to 9. This is part of the Choice Ready skill. So I have to digress a little because that's what I do. We have our math teacher in the building. She winces at this, but we are extremely lucky to have such a talented math teacher. If you were to come, I would suggest you come to Woodrow and walk into Sherry Ernst's room. If you were to walk in that room, she's going to kill me. If you walk in that room, what you will see is a teacher sitting with a student who is very vibrant, and she is ready to take on many of the challenges that these students have, and the students absolutely love her. So it will be a shame when she's actually gone because we'll have to fill those shoes. If anybody will step up to the challenge, it will be Sherry. So when we talk about, students going to the level, I hate math, I'm an English teacher. Many other students hate math also, but because they walk out of Sherry's room, a lot of them feel equipped. Okay, so we feel that she, as well as the staff, is ready to take on this as a reciprocal. Feel me? Because this is awesome. So we are there for the relationship. We come and we have activities for the students, okay? Do we participate in these activities? Yes, we do. So on the left, you'll see a minute to win it game. I lost. And on the right, you will see a student. And I will tell you a little about this student. This student, when he walked in my room, he said absolutely nothing. He just looked at me. He had a very nice smile, but he would want to cover that smile with his hair. And if you see right now, his hair is back, he is smiling, and he is shaking hands. That is a win. This is one of our mini feasts we have in the, well, that's not the grand hallway, but that's the other hall. If you come to Woodrow, you'll see the grand hallway that you walk for miles. But this is the other one with all the classrooms. And so what we stress is, you know, that family setting. We don't know where these students come from, but when they're in our walls, they get the best care that we can give them. Dwayne's House of Pizza, I believe. Nope, it's Deek's Pizza. Donated some food for us. It was pizza with the cops. That's what we called it. And there is a man in the back row in the audience. That is him. If you were going to work at Woodrow, you really have to let down your hair if you have any. I do not. But you really, I mean, you really have to be relaxed and you really have to be on the same level as the students. And that is actually Officer Ness playing basketball with our students, which they enjoy that immensely. Be careful because, you know, have a good stretch. Don't tear your Achilles tendon. Just saying that for a friend. And that is our staff. The thing I say about our staff, I don't know if our principal appreciates this, but we are a ragtag bunch that is put together for the love of kids. Kids or students, I should say. But that being said, I shouldn't say most. There are some staff members, there are a number of staff members that actually drive in from other locations other than Fargo. I drive in from Wapaton. I live in Wapaton. Why do I work at Woodrow? Because there was an opportunity to work with a diverse group of kids, students that I totally identify with. And that's what you're going to see at Woodrow. Thank you.
Are you taking questions right now? Okay. You're done talking? Or, anyone have questions, comments? Brandy?
Well, I just want to thank all of you guys because I had a niece last year that did graduate from Woodrow, and she had a absolute fabulous time at that school. And so I just have nothing but good things to say about your school. So thank all of you for doing what you did for her.
Anyone else? John?
I want to extend thanks as well. And the entire community in Fargo should be very, very proud of what we have going on here at Woodrow Wilson and in the whole Agassi building. And kudos to you, Principal Berkman, and to all of your staff out there for the good work you're doing for all of those students. Thank you.
David?
I don't think that Fargo could call itself a great school district without Woodrow. It's very easy that I was lucky enough to teach at Community High in West Fargo, and everything they said about the relationship that you develop with the kids and the concern that everybody has, it's not like any other classroom that you're ever going to participate in. It takes kids that many people would probably call failures, and it turns some of them into absolute rock stars. I was just wondering, are we at capacity now, Mr. Berkman?
We're kind of right at capacity, but we have room for students.
Okay. Have there ever been times when there's been a waiting list?
Yeah, go ahead and come to the microphone. Thank you.
The largest waiting list that we've had in my 7 years is about an extra week. Generally speaking, it takes a week to get in, so instead of 1 week, 2 weeks. This year, no waiting list, though. We've bumped right up to it. But we have graduates, so we make some room.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gandhi?
Just to kind of echo some of the board member sentiments, I had an opportunity to visit Woodrow about a week or a week and a half ago. I think one of the things that kind of doesn't get noticed about Woodrow Wilson is that oftentimes we talk about changing our education practice at traditional schools and breaking the traditional mold, going to standards-based grading, which has been a big conversation, going back into giving students multiple opportunities, multiple choices to demonstrate their learning. Oftentimes when we have those conversations at traditional campuses, we look back at Woodrow and they're already doing those things, and they've been doing those things for years. And the reason that we're going back to some of that model is because we know that that works, relationships matters, and they have the success to prove it there, so kudos.
Thank you very much. On to the English Learner Program report. Who do we have that's presenting tonight?
Do a turnaround. I started off by saying that I'm very thankful to be a part of some amazing team of educators, and what you got from the Woodrow presentation team, you'd find throughout the whole team. Here with the EL team tonight to give you an overview of the K-12 EL programming. Presenting with me will be Lori Nappy, elementary EL teacher at Lewis and Clark. Cindy Benson, language arts EL teacher at South. And then Amy Burdick, social studies EL teacher at Davies. So switching gears to K-12 EL. We are part of the WIDA consortium, which has grown to be nearly 40 states. What that means is it is an organization, a collaborative, if you will, across the nation that sets the standards, that sets the assessments for English language learners. We are a WIDA state. And I think I asked last year, but does anybody know what WIDA stands for? It's like Wisconsin, Delaware, and Arkansas. States you'd pick to be the original consortium states, right? But like, yeah, Wisconsin, Delaware, Arkansas. Next slide up just gives you a bit of the flavor of who is in Fargo Public Schools in terms of languages. This year, looking at approximately 69 languages being spoken by our 1,200 or so current and former EL students. Next slide goes into percentage of languages. As far as the slice of the puzzle, slice of the pie, if you will. And next up, Lori Nappy is going to talk about really the safeguards of how are we making sure that we identify and serve EL students, which is a federal mandate.
My name is Lori Nappy. I'm the EL teacher at Lewis and Clark Elementary. I have the best job in the world. We worked really hard last year to make our forms ESSA compliant, and what I'm passing around is what we call the home language survey. This complicated matrix up here is on the DPI website. What kicks all of this off is this home language survey. The front page is required by anybody who registers at Fargo Public Schools, and the back page is optional. What happens is if there's a language listed other than English, our wonderful EL secretary or administrative assistant gets an alert, and then she prints off the home language survey and gives it to whatever teacher in whatever building that needs it. The very first year we went to online forms at Lewis and Clark, I had 6 American parents say yes to this. And so I had to call and make sure that there was a language, and many parents were like, what, I did what? And they didn't understand. So imagine being a parent who speaks a foreign language, and you have to fill out this form, which is in English, and it's online, and you're probably doing it on your phone. So it's pretty complicated. Our registrars in the buildings are wonderful. They will ask them to come back and get an interpreter. They will help them fill that out, paper pencil if they need to. So this is really what alerts us that we have a student that we need to take a look at. And based on the matrix, we might screen them for English language services. Once they're screened, they may qualify, they may test out. It just depends on their level of English. My favorite thing is when I tell a teacher, I'm gonna have to take so-and-so and test them. They say, oh, it won't take long, they speak really good English. Well, that makes it take longer, because if they speak very little English, they're just clicking away and don't know what they're doing. But if they speak English very well, that means that they're going to be taking the time to read everything and do their best.
There we go. Okay, this is a snapshot of what our EL program looks like this year by the numbers. And you can see that we have 924 students enrolled in our program. And then there's the breakdown for elementary, 542, 160 in middle school, and 220 high school students. If you look at the bottom part of it, it shows the percentage of ELL students enrolled by year. And as you can see, that's kind of been creeping up over the years. And now 8.2% of the Fargo Public School population are English learners. And if you count in former EL students, that's 1,200 and representing 55 different countries. And so about 8.6 of our population is current and former EL students. And this is kind of the breakdown by how they get here. So 45% are refugees, 55% are immigrants, 2% are Native American. A lot of people are often kind of surprised, like, why do you serve Native Americans? But there is a spot on the home language survey, and if one of their if their parent says a tribal language is influencing their school performance, then we probably do more testing and see if they qualify for our program. All right, and this is by building. Those numbers are kind of small, so I hope you can see them. I think what jumps out at me here is that Ed Clapp and Jefferson have the biggest numbers at the elementary school. Both of those have over 100 English learners. If you look, Ben Franklin, Carl Ben, those are pretty close in number. We just have a lot smaller number. Carl Ben and Discovery, they're about the same. And we have just a smaller number going to Ben Franklin. Same thing with the high schools. The north side has a smaller number, but Davies and South are getting pretty close together. And you can see how the numbers have kind of gone through the years. We're actually kind of getting more on the south side at the secondary schools as the years have gone by. And you can also see, well, I guess this isn't an all-time high for English language learners. I'm kind of surprised by that. Last year was kind of our all-time high with 1,073, and this year we've got 924. And this talks a little bit about our daily service that we provide to our English language learners. We have levels 1 through 4 that we serve. When they reach a level 5, they exit the program. And that's based on our WEDA test that we give, our access for ELs. And entering, we say to get 3 to 4 units of EL. Units is kind of a funny term, but it's different in elementary school and middle school and high school. Our classes are, different links, so we just call it a unit. They get about 2 to 3 units at level 2, 1 to 2 at level 4, maybe 1 at 1 to 2 at level 3 and 1 at level 4. That varies a little bit on the student's need. We don't say, they're level 4, they only get 1 unit. If we feel like they need more service, they can have it. If we feel like maybe they're ready to be mainstreamed and don't need service, so we look at the individual kid when we do that, not just the level numbers. So it's kind of by teacher recommendation.
All right, so David had mentioned earlier that we're part of that WEDA consortium, and that dictates the assessment that we give, the annual access test that students take, usually in January or February. 2 years ago, WEDA decided to adjust the proficiency levels and the proficiency scales for students. So in other words, they made it more difficult for students to exit an EL program. So that's taking the language that's required, the content knowledge that's required, and increasing the proficiency level for them to get out. We don't think this is a bad thing. Most of the teachers agreed, yes, the standards and the benchmarks and the proficiency scales needed to be adjusted because we were seeing some kids that had exited and then maybe were struggling out in their mainstream classes and not quite ready. So for us, that just means, you know, adding to the rigor in trying to get kids to those higher proficiency levels for how they've been adjusted.
Types of language acquisition, we call one BICS and one is called KELP. BICS we sometimes refer to as survival language or social language. For instance, today we had Learn Not to Burn. The fighters came in, and I have a group of kindergartners who have very little English, like they got here this summer. And I am doing total physical response, and I'm stop, dropping, and rolling, and I'm making fire engine noises. And one of my little guys taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Teacher, I know English. Like, stop. You need to stop." So, so that was his survival language. Cognitive language is school language. They say it takes 5 to 7 years, and actually the state of North Dakota is now holding us to that with our growth targets. They would like to see students who enter our program leave it within 7 years, because that would be about the time an average student would acquire language that is equal to a native-born speaker. At the elementary level, all of our teachers are highly qualified, meaning they have an elementary ed degree plus they have an EL certification. The standard of effort is to have groups that are from 3 to 9 students. Some teachers push in, some pull the students out. It just depends on what the program needs and what their student needs are. Right now, as far as enrichment goes, we are trying to take our current curriculum and add things to that, because we would like to serve the students who are just about to exit and but still need a little service. We're trying to see what that looks like. We have this curriculum that we all have, and I have to thank Dr. Gross for that. When we did the pilot, he came out and told us what kind of data to collect, so thank you. Also helped us find what was needed for right then and there. And so we've added things to that over the years, but he was the one that helped us get our initial push for that. And so what we're trying to do now is add to this curriculum for the students who are higher level. If you think of the units of service, and level 4 might get 1 unit of service, is that every day? Are they a 4.8 and they're gonna exit at a 5.0? Do they need a resource? Do they have things that we could just support that are going on in the classroom? So we're doing what we're calling unit framers, which we're taking all the vocabulary, all of the stuff for each unit in each level, and saying, what can we add to that? Is it a reading A to Z book? Is it a book that I read that was on natural disasters? And bring things that might be in their classroom so that those higher level students can be supported.
Okay, I teach at the high school, but our middle level person couldn't make it tonight, so I'll speak on her behalf as well. So at the middle level for CBE and Discovery, our standard of effort is a little bit different. Those are the goals for what it would look like to have the size of your classroom be ideal. We often are much higher than that in our classes, but for level 1, we'd like to see those classes at about 8 students. Levels 2 to 4 would be about 10 students per class, and then resource would be approximately 10. Down at the middle school, they offer language arts, math, reading support, which is Read 180 and System 44, and a resource. And then enrichment as needed for students that maybe are mostly mainstreamed, or on the opposite end of the spectrum, students who are newly arrived and might be struggling to get by in their mainstream classes. Peek at one of their curriculums that they use in the language arts curriculum is also by National Geographic, so it's actually quite similar to the REACH curriculum that they use down at the elementary school, and it's all about combining that language and the content and all of those skills to support them in their classes. Up at the high school, our standard of effort increases a little bit. Level 1, we'd still like to have 8 students per class. Levels 2 to 4, ideally about 15, and then resource would be capped at about 10. Again, it's often much larger than that. The EL classes that we offer any class that is required for a high school diploma is offered in the EL curriculum. So I teach social studies, so I teach Western Civ, government, economics, U.S. history, and introduction to social studies. So we do math, science, language arts, reading. I also teach a class called Partnership with New Americans, which focuses on social and cultural norms in America.
And we offer a resource for students that are maybe mostly mainstream. They need just a little bit of support working on some of those harder assignments to get them to where they need to be. So our reading intervention that's used at the high school, similar to the middle school, is Read 180 and System 44. We also use a curriculum called Side by Side, which is not any electronic curriculum. It's old school, paper and pencil. And we use that for some of our newest students as well.
Every summer in June, we offer EL Summer School, which is really just a boost to English language development. We had probably 300 kids pre-K through 12th grade this past year. We also, brand new, was a family camp. We're trying to kind of serve the whole family if we can. That was at Agassiz, so a lot of parents who were already going to Agassiz to learn English were able to bring their kids, and their kids were in a lot of fun activities, and it brought parents and children together. EL family engagement. Education is culturally important and respected. I have been told by parents that I am right up there with, you know, the powers that be. They put me above themselves, which is, I don't deserve that. But oftentimes our parents don't come to school because of the culture that they come from, because you don't question school, and the school knows what they're doing, and we're not going to go and ask them questions. They know what they're doing. In some cultures, the only time you're called to school is if there's a problem. And so we're trying to get our families to come to school and find out that it's a great place to be, and we want to tell you how great your kid is. I know that Lincoln has what they call Family Engagement Night, and she will have, there'll be an activity for the students in the gym, and there'll be some food going on, and they'll tell parents about different things that are happening at the school. One year at Jefferson, we had a police officer come in and talk about different things. There's lots of good things going on all over, just to let parents know that school is a great place to be. I personally get 100% attendance at conferences because I will have a conference in the car in the front parking lot if I need to. I will come to your home. We also have our EL social workers. We have 3 hardworking gals who will go and pick you up if you don't have a ride. At Lincoln and I believe Ed Clapp, they have a bus route that will go, and they'll have all the EL conferences on the same night, so they have all the interpreters ready there. The bus will come and pick you up because transportation is always something that is tricky for some of our parents. We have several bilingual paras in our school who will make parent phone calls for us. They know the confidentiality behind that. Using interpreters, they're all trained and paid by the school district through a service that vets them, makes sure that they know the languages that we're using for them. At the high school, they did a cheat sheet for calling in attendance, and it's just like number 1, and this child is sick and they're coughing, and you can just call and the attendance knows number 1. That's all you have to say. If you don't have the English to say my child has a fever, and maybe they'll come in the afternoon, but right now they can't come. All you have to do is call and say number 1, or if it's an appointment, it might be number 2. And so the social workers in those back to school nights, they'll explain that to the parents that that's all you need to do. So we're really trying to do things so that the parents can come to school or that they can interact with the school and feel comfortable.
In working with the Adult Learning Center, Jennifer Free's adult team and then our K-12 team, we have been working for 2 years now on some common goals. Marzano is the teacher evaluation system that Fargo Public Schools use. And on the EL side, so pre-K, Agassiz building, mom and dad are upstairs learning English while the preschoolers are downstairs. The pre-K and the adult side, along with the K-12 side, having 2 shared goals. We also have a minimum of 1 PD professional development get together each year where we brainstorm ideas how to improve in these goal areas. Goal number 1 is on the protective side, student mental health and ACEs. I'm guessing you've all heard a lot about the adverse childhood experiences, student mental health. Number 1 protective factor to combat, if you will, ACEs or protect a child against those adverse childhood experiences is a strong, healthy family support. Nothing new there. That's not rocket science. We, though, as a pre-K-12, we have a shared goal of promoting positive interactions about students and parents. Is Marzano Domain 4, element number 56. That's the actually from the teacher evaluation model. And our goal is we want to support strong EL family dynamics in American culture. And second goal that we have, pre-K through adult, is promoting family literacy. What's exciting is there's some very lively discussion when the adult ed side gets together with the K-12 side. There's a lot of healthy connections that we look forward to further developing. So EL team, presenters tonight are course captains, connecting a few dots here. So course captains, Lori would be an elementary course captain, and Cindy and Amy are high school course captains. That would be Jodelle Tykins having leadership in the area of let's get curricular areas working together. They do an outstanding job representing their areas as course captains. Do you all speak 69 languages? Okay. One short. Would invite you to come into an EL classroom. I know you all have schools that you have designated as schools to visit. When you do your site visits, if you're able to visit a EL classroom, I highly recommend it. Or if you just like to get out and do a sampling of, well, what is this like? So I've got 7 different languages in my classroom and I'm teaching them English. They may have a core, say that's a 4th grade, there's a 4th grade teacher who's taking all students, trying to make that work, and then students get pulled out for EL service. How does that work? Very passionate, very dedicated, very talented group of educators. They're also tremendous collaborators in their buildings because they do have to work with the grade level teachers, the grade level teams. Yeah, it's a great team. I believe this picture was from South High doing a South High volunteer experience over at Ed Clapp. Lots of smiles. Any questions you have, K-12 EL?
Robin?
Yeah, I have a couple comments and then some questions. Thank you. You serve a lot of my Boys and Girls Club kids at Lincoln, Lewis and Clark, and Ed Clapp. Okay. Okay, thank you. So thank you for the work that you do, and also the work with the families, because that is really what helps our kids be successful. You beat me to it, David. I was at Davies, an EL student for a day. It was fascinating to see how they pull out and cluster, but the most remarkable piece of that day was how eager every single student was. And that's not always common at the high school level. It was excitement that you would see at a kindergarten, 1st grade level about learning. So that was very warming to my heart. Third one is kind of a comment/question. There are a lot of parallels between the EL programs and our LRED programs, or LRE. This is a model of LRE, least restrictive environments. Is that fair to say that, Bob? I know that we need to mainstream at certain levels with certain proficiencies. Is that accurate?
I would say there are many parallels because what we want to do is we want to address the needs of the student in the best setting possible. For some students, that is a pull-out setting.
Yep.
If that's where that learning is best to take place. For others, it's a push-in model because that's, again, where they're at on that continuum of learning. So I think there would be parallels between that and when we talk around least restrictive environment when it comes to behavior or other learning modalities as well.
There was a court case about a decade or 12 years ago where school districts were actually getting sued for not adhering to LRE requirements for English language learners, and that struck me. So it's not just, it goes throughout our school system, and mainstreaming our kids is so important. So thank you for everything that you do, guys.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for your time. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve? So motion to approve the consent agenda, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Christie. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. On to the business item, monitoring of GP 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, and 14, Memo 43. Jim?
I move we accept the Memo 43 report on GP 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Jim, second by Robin. Any discussion? Jennifer?
So I have a question before we vote, and I think this is actually on governance tomorrow for discussion, but perhaps I feel like I want to ask it now before we vote. What does a yes or a no vote really mean when we're doing monitoring? Does it mean that we're accepting the document, that it's fully completed, or does it mean that we're actually in agreement with some of the comments or all of the comments that are written?
And I do want to add, I don't believe it is on tomorrow's agenda, but it is on a future agenda item. Thank you. But Jim?
I believe, at least since I've been on the board and we've been doing this, that it really means we've accepted the report, not that we necessarily are in agreement with everything in it.
Jennifer?
So can you give me an example then, Jim, based on your history? If there's been a no, why would that be?
I'm always a little confused when we're at this juncture and somebody votes no on the accepting the report, because that's really what the motion was to accept and file the report. Technically, they're not really actionable items. I mean, they're monitoring documents. So I've never quite understood why somebody would vote no on one of these. So I can't give you a good answer, Jennifer.
Robin?
I agree with Jim. It's accepting a report, and these are opinions. I don't think they're facts, so to vote against somebody's opinion seems counterintuitive. So I think these are working tools to say, these are things we need to bring forward to governance, exactly what you mentioned. So it's like accepting a financial report. It's a report, it's not about the content.
Jim?
And maybe this will help. Years ago, these were actually on the consent agenda, but then we recognized from time to time board members wanted to discuss something, you know, send this over to governance to look at, and other people had questions about what that meant. So that's why it drifted down to the business section as opposed to just being on the consent agenda, because it really is, we're accepting the report as opposed to saying, yes, we agree or disagree with the report. So I think that's why it's now on the business side. So if somebody wants clarification or comment, there's the opportunity to do it, if that helps.
And I tend to agree, what has been shared by Robin and Jim, that, well, and that was what the motion was. I suppose someone could make a different motion, but that was what the motion at least was tonight. I know in terms of most of the times when we have items on the business agenda, there will be a cover memo that accompanies it with a recommendation for a motion if a person wants to follow that recommendation or not. So since we don't have any cover memo with that kind of language on here, I could see where there might be some kind of a question. And I'm just saying I'd be willing to put that on if that's something that we wanted to discuss at governance in terms of creating some kind of a memo or just for point of clarification, that would be fine with me. But I also see this as a, when I have voted, and when I vote yes, I see it as I am saying, yes, I've received the document. And knowing that when there have been requests that would go to governance for conversation like policy edits, that kind of a thing, that's where it goes next. So it's been an approval, a receipt and an approval, but not necessarily me approving all of the comments.
So if I were to compare it to something, just because I finished a big annual review today for one of my employees, it's almost like an acknowledgement that we received it. If an employee were to disagree with something that I said in the review, they can certainly dispute that, but they still sign off that, yes, I received this, and even though I don't agree, they still sign that they acknowledged it. Kind of like an employee handbook.
Anything else? Jennifer?
Does everyone agree with that? Because I feel like in order to make a vote, I kind of feel like everyone needs to be on the same page. Or maybe there needs to be a discussion at governance first, because I can tell you there have been examples within this year where folks have voted no, outside of just me voting no.
Well, I would say right now, the motion is to, and I don't have the Anne Marie, you could read the exact wording, and then we could go from there.
It would be to accept memo 43, the GP 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14 monitoring document in the packet.
So it indicates acceptance in receival of it. It doesn't indicate that everyone here agrees with any comment on it. So I would say that that's the motion on the table, and that's the second, and then we're having that discussion. And so unless there's any more discussion, we ought to vote on that. And then if we decide at governance to make some changes, then that is something for down the road. But for tonight, we have the motion on the table.
One quick last comment. These are written by the Aspen Group's policy governance, so they could also probably provide us with some clarification behind the purpose for the monitoring reports. Might be helpful. I mean, we can discuss it at governance, certainly, but I know that I am 100% sure they will have a clear answer for us.
Good point, Robin. Christy?
It's my understanding it would be acceptance, not necessarily agreement.
Jennifer?
One more question, and maybe Anne Marie, you can answer this. What would be a reason not to accept a document then? Like, what if there was a majority that voted no? What happens? And I'm just looking for a reason why then there would even be a vote.
Well, Jim, I'm going back to what Jim said about having this on the consent agenda. That it appears that the reason to have the vote, whether it's on the consent agenda or on the business, where it is on the agenda, is that we as a board are officially saying we've received it. It's formal action that we've received the document. And without the vote, there isn't that formal action. Anne Marie?
Your policies stipulate that you monitor yourselves. You do your monitoring process, either your ELs, your GPs, your BSRs. And so this is acceptance that you have completed your monitoring work as a board.
Rupak?
Yeah, and just to capitalize on that, to answer your question, if the majority of the board did not do this, you would not be following your policy in doing that. So then we would go back to, the board president would then initiate another document, but you would still have to monitor it again. Unless you as the board chooses not to violate or not to honor their own policy.
May I build on both of your answers, and that is, if we don't all complete it, or is there somewhere that states only the majority of us have to complete it, or are we been violating our own sort of rule if not all of us complete it and we're still voting yes to accept it?
Are you asking that question of Anne Marie?
Of anyone that can answer. Mm-hmm.
Your policies
Jim?
don't go that deep.
There is no law that requires us to do our homework. We have our own organizational rules that tell us we're supposed to do our homework. And it would be a wonderful day if we always had 9 responses to every one of our monitoring documents. But this is to let us know, actually let our public know as well, that we are holding ourselves accountable to the governance model we have, and hence we are monitoring these things as per our calendar. And obviously, sometimes there are going to be areas that we mark not in compliance. That's a great set of directions, usually to our administration, that, okay, we got to look at this, get them more data, or do something different. So I think these documents have a very real role. But again, I'll go back to something Robin said. All 9 of us are answering this question from our perspective. It doesn't mean it's the group's perspective. Hence, we may have 7 people that said something's in compliance, 2 partial compliance. Those are opinions, and they help us, I think, as a board, understand, okay, we should have had more conversation on this probably, and next time around we probably will. So I think it's really a tool to help us become better more than anything else. And also to let the public know that, okay, here are the guidelines of how we're going to operate, and we are actually trying to follow those guidelines most of the time. Nobody's perfect. This board is about as good as any I've ever served on, but I've never seen us go for a full year with all 9 people doing all their homework assignments through the course of the year. I think that's an unrealistic expectation, but it's a goal, and it's still a good one to have.
Jennifer?
So I appreciate the conversation, but still an acceptance of a document, you're accepting it as written by a vote of yes, even if you're not in agreement. So I still feel like until we have the Aspen Group's direction, I don't know, it's still a little squishy, to steal your term, Rebecca.
I'm glad someone's used, I'm glad that term is being spread around. Does anyone else have anything to add?
All right, I don't mean to belabor this. From my history, when Jim talked about this being pulled from the consent agenda, that was done on purpose so it would be more comfortable to discuss, since if it was a business, or in the business section of the agenda, because sometimes it's uncomfortable to pull something from the consent agenda, you know what I'm, just to ease the conversation. So it was, you know, they'll probably tell us to put it back on our consent agenda if we use pure policy governance structure, but we don't. So, but that's up to us too.
Yeah, that's good background information. All right. Anne Marie, could you call the vote, please?
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Board reports. Legislative priorities. Are we looking to Robin here?
Okay.
Well, I'm looking. I don't know if we all are. I'm looking to Robin.
I have so much paper on my desk, I can't even find my agenda.
Well, do you need a little bit more time?
No,
Okay.
Do you want me to just report out with all of my things?
Is that okay if
Oh, there
Robin
it
does
is.
that? Are you folks okay with that?
No, nope, I
Okay.
can, you just let me know.
Let's go. Yep,
Okay.
go ahead, Robin.
Shut up, Robin, and report. I get it. Okay, I am passing around the legislative priority booklet that was a result of conversation that we had at the Governmental Affairs Committee. Don't think that we did all this work. Jolynn and Jackie and her team put it together based upon the conversations that we had at that meeting. So really, we determined to try to keep our legislative priorities fairly broad, and then once the session kicks in, we would get a little bit more, take more precise opinions and directions on certain legislation. But basically what you're seeing here is the same format as last year. The introduction, our top priorities would be social, in no particular order, social emotional learning, on-time funding, and then underfunded programs, which all kind of flow together. So at this point, this is kind of for informational purposes. This tool would be used to introduce our district's positions and general talking points for the legislative breakfast. That is shortly after the November 6th election, the big day. So if there are any comments or questions or suggestions, you just let me know or let somebody on GAC know, and I'll make sure that we discuss that.
Great, thank you very much. You want to continue on?
Sure. All right. I have another handout. No wonder I was lost in all my paper. The task force met on October 16th. And to give you guys a little bit of background, I was typing up the notes and I was sending them to West Fargo. And they really didn't feel the need to approve or report the same way we did. So I didn't know that, but I painstakingly took notes at the last committee meeting, and I could barely pay attention. So, and then when I put it all together, I looked on the website, and there was an overview, wonderfully written, by Diane, which pretty much captures in a much more precise way what happened. So it's better written than I did, so I guess this would be my report. It was just an overview, a review of the first meeting, an overview from Carner Blue Education in Blaine, Minnesota, and then a second group, Lakes Country Academy in Fergus Falls. That was very interesting to me. I didn't realize that that existed. They have more pull-out programs, similar to what the board discussed prior. Lakes Country Academy works with 16 different school districts, so that struck me as, you know, a different type of model, the collaborative with around the community. We had some sticky note exercises talking about what we want in different clusters of the conversation, and then that would all be combined later. And I assume we'll get the report out at the next meeting. Any questions I can answer about that report?
I have a question,
Sure.
Robin. Just because you and I visited a little bit about the reporting out on that task force. And so as we all know, that the minutes from the task force meetings are available to us. So the document that she, you know, it's not her position or role to be taking all that minuscule information and all of that important information, though, down. So we need her to be able to be there and take in all that information and listen and learn. So I'm just hoping that we understand the kind of report that we're asking, you know, from Robin. And I think the reason we had talked about having, we're trying to work to get some consistent communication as much as humanly possible, so that as the public hears information potentially regarding these task forces, with our boards having different one meeting on one day and one meeting on another, to try to tighten up that communication. I think that was the original goal, but my thought is, and hopefully the rest of you feel like, just do what you feel is right and comfortable, so that you are able to pay attention and participate at those meetings as much as possible, versus feeling like your job is a note taker and then just to respond, you know, and provide that information to us. Because if we all want to receive additional information, then what she provides, we can go to the site. But I did want to ask if anyone has questions for you at this point on that, if that's okay, Robin? Okay. Anyone have questions? And Jennifer?
So I guess I wasn't able to attend this meeting but I did the other task force. And one of the things that I think even actually it came from you, Robin, was the suggestion that we would come in with no preconceived notions or ideas, and we listen to everyone at the table. And so when I see that Carner Blue was there and another academy, I'm just sort of curious, do the same rules or parameters apply here, or are we looking to only sort of two different models?
Those were the models that was presented by the presenter. The task force really, this was part of the original, here's the content, any disagreements, and we had to vote on our little things. And basically, everybody agreed or strongly agreed that this was the sequence of events and what would be presented.
Rupak?
As an attendee in the task force, the activity that immediately followed the model presentation was not to learn from the presentation and get a model. It was to see what services are offered at two different types of models for services that provide support for various special education needs. So what the activity that immediately followed both presentations was, now let's start talking about critical attributes that you saw in either one of the presentations or another presentation that resonates with you. And then from there, if I believe the next meeting or the subsequent meetings is where they'll talk about, okay, which model do these attributes fit in? So it was really a matter of saying how our students' needs met across different facilities or different services that service students that have that need for special education.
That was much better stated. And some of the attributes, examples would be no sound in the room whatsoever, no overhead lights that are going to overstimulate somebody, certain emergency areas where if emergency vehicles have to come, it wouldn't be embarrassing for the students. Clear exit strategies and reentry strategies back down to a setting C scenario. So it was very interesting. Yeah, nothing about facilities. I think that's what you're getting at, and it really had to do with the attributes and how can we deliver those attributes. I think that was the goal of it. The next meeting is October 30th, Tuesday, 3:30 to 5:30 at Wanzik. I think that's all about that one. I attended the Chamber of Commerce Candidate Cracker Barrel, which is kind of a fun event. I was a table host, and that's when legislators go to different tables and talk to different community members. So met, I think, with pretty much all of the candidates, including Minnesota, which was a little over my head. I went to my very first Fargo Cass Public Health Board meeting. What a delightful group of people. That might be my favorite board, sorry, school board. But there were a couple things to highlight. They have some resolutions about advocacy for some of the measures, and on there were, they want a bill to increase the cigarette tax, and then they also had some, they're opposing Measure 3, not opposing, they're not supporting Measure 3, the medical or the recreational marijuana. But one of the questions I did receive, and maybe Bob can answer it for me, in the YRBS, vaping was a big conversation. And I learned a lot about that terminology. Are there vaping questions that you're familiar with in the YRBS?
I'd have to go back and double check, but I'm sure, to the best of my recollection, it talks about tobacco use in multiple formats. I don't know if they mentioned vaping as a particular item, but the various formats of using tobacco.
Yeah, it was interesting.
John?
Could you define YRBS for our viewers at home?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And there is a lot of, I mean, Fargo Cass Public Health uses a ton of information. That's a very respected survey.
Christy?
I can respond to the questions about tobacco as part of the coalition that put that out. And they are very, very specific in how those questions are asked. Some of the questions say, have you smoked cigarettes? Others, have you used tobacco products? So both questions were asked in different formats.
Thank you, Christy.
That's
Robin?
helpful. Yeah, they call it ENDS, Electronic Nicotine Delivery Systems. I have a whole bunch of new terms. I'm learning so much from that board. And then we already talked about GAC. So the next GAC meeting is a special interim meeting on November 1st, so we can prepare for the breakfast. That's all I have.
Thank you, Robin. Jim, do you want to go ahead and take care of your task force update and anything else?
Is the Early Childhood Special Education Task Force, but I think it's really the pre-K task force, because we're certainly looking at issues and opportunities well past just our special ed toddlers. We've had 2 meetings. First one was really organizationally getting everybody in sync. We played with some clickers, and luckily they brought some chocolate, so everybody was in a pretty good mood. We had our second meeting last night, and really, as a group, started, or in small group format, started to tackle at least the first question that we're putting in front of the group to get their thoughts on what would be the ideal things for, and the question last night was specific to early special ed, but I think as you read through your Post-it notes, you're going to find there are really is a broader discussion going on in several of those groups, which is fine. The more thinking and the more sharing, the better. I think our next meeting is November 5th, and we are meeting in the loft. At least I call it the loft. It's the old theater in Agassiz Junior High, right above the SEEC offices. And I'm probably the only guy in the room that knew it was the old theater. Maybe not. Somebody else might have known that.
Jim,
Yep.
is it okay if I ask, does anyone have questions regarding that task force of Jim at this point? Okay. I wanted to mention that I attended that meeting last night. The problem with not serving on the task force is you don't have candy at your disposal. And so, any rate, Jim, thank you for your service. And actually, Rupak, you brought me, I think, a couple pieces last night. But any rate,
Yeah, I thought we were going to have a conversation after, because I definitely brought you some candy.
Jim is privy to more candy. Continue on. Thank you.
I attended the Community Development Commission meeting, which was last week. Second one of those I've been to. Big issue, well, it wasn't really a big issue. The big topic, outside of some housekeeping things, was really talking about the community as a whole and how different stakeholders in the community are making preparations to figure out emergency sheltering for our homeless population since winter's knocking on the door. And the process that has existed for a number of years got discontinued last year. There are more beds available now due to the expansion of the New Life Center and another facility as well. And I think the current thinking, although both people in Moorhead, people in Fargo, I don't know if people in West Fargo work on this or not, are thinking that right now the current plan is that we're going to shelter in place at our primary shelters, basically bring in cots, but that may not be enough of a backstop, so I think there's some community discussion about, okay, what happens if that gets filled? What's the next step we're going to go forward with? It's also the beginning process for people to put in grant requests to get community development funds. Those for the 2019, I guess I'll call it budget year, really will be looked at between now and early December, and then the Community Development Commission will make their recommendation as to who they're going to give the CBG money to, depending upon what projects surface. And just a side note for those of us that live in the near south side of town, there's going to be a new look to the Moeller Barber College. Unlike us who get a haircut, they're getting a facelift. They'll have a new storefront sometime over the next few months. Two things to note from the state board level. One, and I just want to do this as a shout out because the community probably won't know this, but Dinah Goldenberg will be receiving a Veteran Master Board Award at our conference this weekend. She's informed me she's not intending to drive to Bismarck to get it. I told her I would pick it up as I'm handing it to her and bring it back and get it to her. And maybe we'll invite her down here to a future board meeting to actually present it to her, if that would be okay with you, Rebecca. And I know we're all going to be going out to Bismarck with West Fargo. We've got a date picked out for that, close to crossover. But as a state organization, we're also going to have Educational Leader Day at the Capitol on January 28th. And obviously any board member that would like to come out for that certainly is welcome to. And as we get more details put together on that, I'll make sure I'm sharing those back with the group as well. I think that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Robin, question?
Yeah, the CDBG letter, you can please report back. It was the clearest it's ever been. So they broke out the dollars a little bit differently. It's much more easier to understand what comes from the feds and what comes from the local one mill. So tell them thank you.
And they're still fighting about that little breakout though, so.
Okay, it's clear to me.
Yeah, it is, it is.
Thank you, Jim. Christy?
I have scheduled my visits with my liaison schools, and I attended the chamber policy meeting. They had some amendments to some of their legislative issues that were looking at education and the funding of education differently, and luckily those amendments were voted down for K-12 funding to keep their wording as is. So it was important to be there. Thomas Hill from the YMCA was there as well, or from United Way, and good to have some broad discussion.
Thank you, Christy. Brandy?
November 1st, I'll be doing my centennial visit, and then just communications, and I'll let Jen do communications meeting. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Brandy. Brian?
Yeah, I've done both of my visits and reports are done. It was fun to see those buildings and what goes on in those buildings. Last Tuesday, I attended the Fargo Davies concert, and that was a great concert. Two of my daughters participated in it, as well as many students, and it was just such a great setting. It was very impressive. And then lastly, I had the opportunity to go to the North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders Conference last Thursday and Friday and witness and watch our administration mingle and heard lots of great things about our superintendent, Mr. Grande. So sounds like things are going well with your colleagues and you guys had a good conference.
Thank you, Brian. John?
Not a whole lot to update from the last 2 weeks. I'm very much looking forward to attending the North Dakota State Conference Thursday and Friday this week. Thank you.
Jennifer?
So both Communications Committee met and the Health Insurance Committee met since our last meeting. So the minutes you've already received, probably reviewed, but I'll just highlight a few things that we discussed. Administration shared some of the topics that they're considering for the State of Schools event in January, and they're currently working on draft questions. We talked a little bit about board training opportunities and survey results. And I'll just share a quick statistic because Brittany was there to share with us around exit interviews that currently 25% of the staff who left FPS took the exit survey, and that they also offer this to retirees, and that nearly 100% of them participate. All these suggestions and feedback that are gathered are brought to Cabinet for discussion. So I thought those were some important things to highlight. And our next meeting will be November 19th at 12 noon. The Health Insurance Committee met. They reviewed some financial reports today and talked briefly, well, not briefly, talked about HSA funding models to prepare for their December report that they will be bringing to the board. And open enrollment, education, what do you call them, meetings, have been set. There's going to be one at North, South, and Davies, so there'll be 3 of them, November 16th, 15th, or 2 on the 16th and 1 on the 15th, offered at a variety of times to help accommodate, offer some flexibility for some staff. And I've reached out to all my liaison schools. Matter of fact, we've probably been in contact over the last month, but trying to find a date that works for all 3 of them and me. We're still working, but it is a work in progress. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Jennifer. David?
I attended the Communications Committee meeting last week, and I spent yesterday afternoon with Vince Williams down at Discovery. That's it.
All right, thanks, everyone. I'm just going to pass around here this is the contract for the Aspen Group that I'll be signing this evening. It doesn't require board approval based on the amount on the contract, but in case you want to take a look at it before I sign it, go for it. And we will be having that time with the Aspen Group set for December 14th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So thanks, everyone, for holding that time on your schedule. Governance meets tomorrow morning at 7:30. I've been attending all the meetings for the task forces, and as an observer, I'm trying to make it clear. I've been invited to join in onto the tables for conversation, but I've thanked folks, but just really want to make it clear that I'm there as a constituent, as a parent, and as a community member to listen and learn. I decided to leave my computer at home, and I left my notebook in the car, and just so that I could listen in. So just kind of reminding everyone, I know that it doesn't work for everyone to attend those, and some of you maybe don't plan to attend, and that's fine as well, but just to make sure that we are cognizant that our job, if we are to show up, is that we are there as to listen and learn, and that we aren't the official participants at those meetings, that those folks have been selected based on those constituency groups. Met with a majority of you, or most folks, regarding one-on-ones. If anyone wants to have that feedback with me still, go for it. Give me a call or shoot me an email, or as time goes on too. Obviously, if there's anything to discuss where you feel like you need to just talk to me one-on-one, please do. I attended the Crossroads Powwow. That was Sunday, the 14th of October, and I attended that as part of the Native American Commission in terms of being a member there. And our next meeting is November 1st. And let's see here, we have homework coming up, well, we have a little time. November 8th is our next homework due. Anne Marie, if you still maybe need to hear back from some folks regarding the chamber, November and December, if there's anyone that plans to attend, she has it highlighted here that we should let her know this evening. We have our dinner Thursday evening for NDSBA. So looking forward to a great conference. It looks like the travel weather will be good. So everyone drive safely, carefully. Take your time and enjoy the learning. I don't have anything else on my president's report unless someone has questions for me. Okay, perfect. It is 7:05 and we will adjourn. Thank you.